Today is Monday, September 24th, and we are interviewing Harold Van Meter at the Illinois State Library. Harold is 92 years old, having been born on 10/10/1919. Harold, could you state for the recording what war and branch of service you served in?
I served in World War II in the Air Force, 8th Air Force in England.
And what was your rank?
Sergeant. Highest rank is sergeant.
And you served in England, did you say?
I served in 2 years in England.
Okay, do you want to give some specifics on where you were at?
Well, I was, first I went to airplane mechanics school here at Chanute Field in Rantoul, Illinois. Graduated from there and went to MacDill Field in Florida for a short time, and then was transferred down to Sarasota Bradenton Air Force Base, where we trained and organized the 8th Air Force. From there, I was sent overseas over to England. Shortly after arriving in England, they sent me to an engine specialist school, learning to change engines on B-17s. And we changed engines, and then I got to fly occasionally with test flight. You want me to tell about my accident over
Well,
there?
we'll get to that. So what was your job assignment?
My job assignment was maintaining the B-17, pulling inspections.
Mechanical.
I could pre-flight the engines, start the engines, and run them through their test before missions, get them ready for a mission.
I see. Did you see combat?
No.
Okay. Did you have casualties in your unit?
Oh yes, yes. A lot of them came back, shot up, and there was casualties.
I see. So, and you yourself sustained injuries? So
What's that?
you sustained injuries?
I was injured, not in the airplane. After the airplane had been, we had checked it over and run it through its routine, got it ready for a mission, and then I stepped out and got hit with a Jeep.
Oh.
So I was in the hospital for a while there and then sent home because it was going to take too long to rehab.
I see. So you were not a prisoner of war then, or anything like that?
No,
okay.
I got a plate in my elbow where they knocked me about 30 feet down the runway.
Wow. Okay. Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Just those that are listed there.
On this one right here.
Yeah.
So you have listed the American Defense Service Ribbon, a European, African, Middle Eastern Theater Ribbon with 4 bronze battle stars, 4 overseas bars, 1 service stripe, and a good conduct medal.
And then I also qualified for my gunnery after I got back to the States.
Okay, can you share any battle planning with us, or
Any battle?
battle planning? Were you aware of any strategic things maybe that were going on?
No, I didn't know just for sure just where they were going. I know our squadron had bombed the oil fields in Poland there and places like that, but I didn't know any other.
Okay. How did you get along with the officers and fellow soldiers?
Very good.
Very good. Did you have any particular stories about any officers or anything that you recall fondly or not so fondly?
Not so particularly.
Okay. Do you remember, did you feel a lot of pressure and stress and anxiety?
No.
No? Okay. Did you keep a personal journal?
No.
No? Can you tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences?
Well, I had several. One time we were on a my captain, the flight crew that I was on the plane, assigned to this one particular plane, wanted to know if I wanted to go with him to check out his co-pilot on practice landings. So we took off, and I was sitting up in the nose of the B-17, and the co-pilot was getting ready to land, and he made a nice approach. But when he got about 50 feet off of the runway, he dropped it, and it bounced, and it shook me up quite a bit. And we went around the second time, and he came in again, and he made a little better, but he still dropped it and bounced it. And we went around the third time. Well, before he started to make his approach, but then he took off and didn't land, but he took off and flew on around. And about that time, I got the message, Van, we need you. We got a problem. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, the landing gear won't go down. Oh. And he says, you know anything about cranking the wheels down? And I said, well, sure, I've done it on the ground, but never in the air. So I went back to the radio room, got the crank, and started to crank down the wheels, but I couldn't budge it. I couldn't break it loose. So I called the co-pilot and told him to see if he could come back and give me a hand. So the co-pilot came back, and the two of us cranked the wheels down, and we landed safely then. And come to find out, he had broken the hydraulic line, and the wheels wouldn't go down. So I had to repair that the next day.
Is there anything else, or did you ever go up again and do any of that again, or was
Well,
that enough for you?
The first time I flew in a B-17, I spent about 2 hours adjusting the parachute, scared to death. But after that, it was just routine. It was.
Were you able to stay in touch with your family and people back home?
A little bit, very little. I had a letter occasionally, not much.
How long did it generally take for the letters to be received and get to you, would you say?
Oh, I don't know, within a month.
Oh, really? Okay. Did you have something that you carried around, something special for good luck or a good luck charm or anything? Okay. Did you guys have plenty of supplies?
Most of the time. While I was there, I was picked out of 40 of us to go on a special detached service with the RAF down in southern England, way down the southern tip of England, when they started the Algerian campaign. And we were working and servicing P-38s. They were flying from our base there in the southern tip of England all the way to Africa, losing a lot of planes at that time, and the young pilots didn't want to go, but they'd get down to the end of the runway and foul up the plugs, sit there and foul up the engine, and then come back in, and we'd have to change plugs and put a little more gas in them and send them off. But the food was not very good then. We were eating English food, on the base there, and we complained about it and got a okay from the captain to set up a field kitchen. So we fed up 40 of us, did our own cooking and used the field kitchen and bombed out part of an old hangar that they let us use, and we set up a field kitchen.
That's well. And the next question was, what was the food like? So, what was that?
That was the only time. The food wasn't too bad where I was stationed all the time. In fact, when I first went in the service, I gained 20 pounds in about 2 months there going to Chanute Field. And I gained a little bit and was doing real good up until the time I got hurt and got knocked down the runway.
Now we're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, rest and relaxation. So, how did you entertain yourself?
Oh, I visited some friends over there. Uh, I went to the USO shows that the Red Cross put on, and
Were there any good entertainers that your unit happened to see?
oh yes, I saw Bob Hope and Francis Langford and Jerry Colonna and some of the old timers.
Were there, where did you go when you would have leave time?
I spent 1 week in London uh, riding the tube underground train all over England, all over London, and had a good time. Saw a lot of things there. The Wax Museum, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum is one big place I remember, and then Buckingham Palace and Big Ben and all that. And then one time I had a week's leave. I went up into northern England, up into Devonshire, county of Durham, and looked up a cousin. My mother was born in England in the northern part up there, and my cousin found out there was a district nurse. She and another lady made their rounds every morning, so they showed me around that part, up around York and Devonshire in England. And I had a good time there, and that's when I went back from that leave and was in the accident on my birthday, October the 10th, 1944.
Oh. Do you recall, did you have any, do any other travel while you were in the service?
Anyway.
Any other travel?
No. Well, I'd go into town. We'd ride our bicycles in the evening and go in and get fish and chips.
Do you recall any particularly humorous or unusual events?
Oh, I know one bad accident, one thing that happened while we were watching a show one afternoon. There came a terrific explosion we heard, and a plane had one of our planes had ran into an English plane, and on land, and I guess they came together and they scattered bodies all around the field, and we had to take a bushel basket and go find them, find parts.
Wow. What were you doing at the time before all that happened?
We were watching a show.
Oh, just watching a USO show?
In the Red Cross building.
Oh, wow. What were some of the pranks that you or others would pull? Were there any pranksters in your unit?
Oh, I know I was sergeant of the barracks, and I had a little mustache at that time, and they kept telling me, Van, you got to shave that mustache off. No, I kind of like it. I said, I'll just leave it on there. It's not bothering nobody. Well, one night, some of the drunks came in, and I told them to be quiet, and settle down. And so a couple of them got me down on the floor of the barracks and took a fingernail clipper and clipped the one side of my mustache off and cut my lip and all. And, well, I was quite put out about it and was mad, and I put them all on KP the next day.
Did you bring any photos you'd like to share with us and tell us about?
Well, not that I took particularly, but some that my son-in-law took while they were over there. They went over and they visited the 3 fields that I was on. And then they got some information about the Air Force in the United Kingdom while we were over there. I was with the 92nd Bomb Group. And
If you have pictures you'd like to hold up and kind of explain what they are, so it can kind of go along with your story if you'd like.
well, he had a picture of the control towers. One was at Bovington. That was the first place that we were stationed at, which was about 20 miles from London. We could see the searchlights and hear the sirens at night. And then we went on detached service with the RAF. And when we came back, we were stationed at, what's this first one? Alconbury. We were stationed there for a short time. I don't remember too much about that one. But then we were transferred from there to another one at Poddington. And this one here is Poddington. And that's the tower there in Poddington. And that's where I got hurt and was in the hospital for about a month, and then I was sent back to the States for rehab and was in a convalescent hospital at Fort Thomas, Kentucky, my last year, and was then had enough service points to get out. And on September the 6th, 1945, I was discharged. And that evening at 8 o'clock, I was married. The same day.
That's sweet. Do you recall the day your service ended? That's
Save entrance?
the day your service ended, yeah.
Oh, the day it ended.
Yes, the day your service ended.
I could write a book.
Well, the follow-up questions are I will go ahead and tell them to you if you want to just make it all one nice story.
Sure.
It's also who was with you. Did the war come to an end, or how did you fulfill your military service? And were others discharged with you?
Well, I was discharged from Fort Sheridan up north of Chicago there. I had been stationed over at Fort Thomas, Kentucky, and then they planned on getting married. And I talked to them about living off of the base over there in Fort Thomas, which was just across the river from Cincinnati Bible College, where my future wife was going to school. So we got to see each other quite a bit the time I was over there. But then before our wedding date, just before, they called me in and said I was being discharged, that I had enough service points to be discharged. So I was sent up to Fort Sheridan and waited and waited and waited. And I tried to talk them out of it, but they wouldn't. You can't talk Uncle Sam. When they decide to get rid of you, they can push you out. So I waited until my name appeared on the form and went through the discharge. And I got into the Union Station there in Chicago, and I had missed the train by 15 minutes. And I was supposed to be home that afternoon to take care of things before the wedding, but I didn't get to take care of anything. So I got home, and later I caught a train out of Chicago at about 5 o'clock and got into Springfield about 8 and was married about 8:30. They were all waiting for me at the church.
Had you met your wife during your time in the service, or
No,
before?
I knew her. She went to college and I went to the service.
Oh, that's sweet.
Well, we knew each other a couple of years maybe before I went to service.
And you communicate like letters the whole time?
I have a few letters, yes.
Yeah. What did you do in the days and weeks afterward? Did you resume a job or start a new career? Did you go back to school?
No, I went to work for the Illinois Bell Telephone Company in November. I was discharged in September, early September, and went to work for Illinois Bell in November of 1945, and had 38 years service with Illinois Bell.
Hmm.
Been retired now 29 years.
Wow. So you didn't use a GI Bill to get any kind of education?
I was able to graduate from the Riverton High School, which had been a 3-year high school up until that year. 1938 was a 4-year high school, and I got to finish my 4 years at Riverton.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
A little bit. I stood up with a fellow from Fort Myers, Stanley, I think was his name. Got married, and I stood up with him over there in England.
Do you attend reunions or anything?
I haven't. No, I haven't been notified of any
Sure.
8th Air Force reunions.
So do you belong to any veterans organizations?
Yes, I belong to the American Legion out at Athens, and I also belong to the VFW Post 755 here in Springfield.
Are there any kind of special activities and stuff you like to do with your post or your Veterans Association? Do you help with fundraising?
I volunteer occasionally. I have sold puppies and some stuff like that where we have fundraisers. And I attend the Tuesday evening chicken suppers and the Friday evening fish fries.
So you have a lot of friends within those?
My son-in-law was commander for several years, and he got me interested in the VFW, so that's when I joined them.
Oh, that's good. How has your military service and your experiences with that affected your life, would you say?
Well, I grew up in a very poor surroundings. My dad drank all his life, and we were very poor during 1932. He worked in the mines, and I remember some of the mine trouble that they had back then. And then he never worked after that. He was on, I guess, the WPA, I believe it was back in those days, where he worked a little bit, but not much. So we were hard up during the Depression. So
you thought that was a good choice for you? Was it?
Well, not a very good choice.
Is that kind of your only choice to make at the time, or?
No. Well, when I graduated, I went to work a little while in a filling station, making a little bit, and was able to help with the help, to around food and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was she was a good cook and very conservative.
So did your military experience influence your thinking about war or military in general?
Well, I just wish for peace. I know that. And can't see why people can't learn to live together peaceably. And I've always thought about the golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's what I've sort of gone by.
Were you like that when in your service time too? Did you kind of think some of this was not, was kind of nonsense?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
It could have been decided and ended much easier.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of interaction with English people that you weren't, serving with?
Yes, I did. I visited English family over there, and I got acquainted with their children, and one funny thing was that they'd never had peanut butter. So I took them a big jar of peanut butter one day, and they just thought that was great.
Oh,
Yeah.
Is there anything else any other little stories you would like to add, or?
Not right off that I know of.
So,
Well, I could write a book about the day I
sure.
got discharged. The trouble Helen had, my wife had here at home, getting things arranged. She had to go with her dad down to get the marriage license,
Oh,
and things like that.
yeah.
And, you could write a book on that day.
So, the military was a good choice for you to make.
I think so.
Do you think in today's
at that particular time, and getting out of the graduating at that time in '38, I think it was because I didn't have any. I know I wouldn't have had any college. Couldn't afford to go to college, and would have had to gone to work. So I would probably ended up in a filling station somewhere.
So I know you have daughters, but had you had sons, would you be all right with them going into the military and serving?
Oh yes, I think they could. It was their duty, to serve their country. Sure.
Okay. Were you in a unit with anybody that was having, like everybody got to choose that they wanted to go? It wasn't like a Vietnam thing, right? You weren't drafted or anything.
Well, in the group that I was with, see, I was drafted.
Okay.
And I was 21. They was drafting at that time, but I was only in the service for about 3 or 4 days because it was over the Labor Day weekend. And I talked it over with my parents, and they said that I had to make the decision, what I wanted to do. So I went back and enlisted for 4 years in the Air Corps. So I figured I might as well learn a trade or something, and figured that I would end up at an airport someplace or do some work around airplanes, but it didn't work out that way.
Did you get to choose what area you went to, or did they assign that?
There was only one time that I was able to pick out where I wanted to go is after I got back to the States, and it was up in Iowa, Clinton, Iowa, where at the hospital, rehab hospital there at first. And they called me in and told me I could pick out the rehab. I would be in rehabilitation maybe a year with my elbow to get it so it would straighten out. And they had pins and a map, and I could pick out the one, and I picked out Fort Thomas, Kentucky, because my wife was going to school across the river.
Sure. Yeah, that was good.
That worked out just fine for me.
That's good. Well, we need to make this 35 minutes. I'm kind of thinking of some follow-up things. Let me see. I don't know what else there really is to talk about too much.
No, the good Lord's been good to me. I live at the Lewis Memorial Christian Village there, and able to have my own car and still drive and go places. And then they take us places too there in their van, and I get along pretty well. So
in the years since have you always followed politics and what's going on in the world, and have any kind of?
Not too much. Not
really?
Too much in politics.
When there's been conflicts going on, have you paid attention?
I think it's bad all over, and even this election is going to be awfully hard on people who make up their mind which one.
We seem, yeah, like you are very peaceful then and really not.
Yeah.
So were you
It don't bother
affected by
me.
your time there?
It
Does
don't bother
that,
me a lot. I mean, I don't worry about it, or I hope that it turns out, good. But
sure, has this always been kind of your position about stuff,
yes,
or
yeah, pretty
your
much.
time in the service didn't sway
Happy-go-lucky,
that?
happy-go-lucky, and
Oh, okay. Well, I know it
so.
needs to be 35 minutes. I don't know what,
So that,
if you have anything else that as we're talking, you thought of that's popped up that you'd like to talk about, we still have 5 minutes to kind of fill up.
no, I've done pretty well.
Okay, so let's go back to you were going to your first place. Was it what you thought it was going to be? Was basic training what you thought it was going to be? You know,
Well,
the atmosphere, did you think living with all these guys from all these different
it was
places?
different, yeah, because I had never been away from home.
Yeah.
I think Springfield was about the farthest from Riverton. I lived I was born in Southern Illinois, down in Ziegler. Moved to Springfield when I was quite young. Went to Harvard Park kindergarten. Moved from there. We moved out to Sherman. My dad was a miner at that time and was working in the mines. And from Sherman, we moved in the fourth grade. Moved over to Riverton, and I went through the rest of the elementary school, the eighth grades, and then went into Riverton High School for 4 years. Graduated from in 1938. I've always been interested in youth work. I was scoutmaster for quite a number of years and on a lot of trips with the scouts, and received the Silver Beaver Award, which was one of my highest surprises that I ever got in my life. I went to Philmont twice, once as a Scoutmaster's training course, and then another one with the Explorers, which was the older Scouts. And I think I learned how to make do with what you got. I mean, I love to fish, and I love to bowl. I bowl with the Old Timers League.
Yeah.
Now, I can't score like I used to, have a high average, but I gotta have a lot of fun and joking and kidding with a mixed Old Timers League.
Sure. When you went to basic training, was that harder than you thought it was going to be, or easier than you thought it was going to be? Had you been physical, kind of athletic in school?
I was kind of lucky. Yeah, I was in pretty good shape at that time, and I didn't have any trouble, in the service. I know I got out of a lot of extra duty by being promoted to sergeant pretty quick. I was a corporal for a little while. I don't think I was ever a PSC.
Did
I
you
don't remember
experience
that.
other people? Did you see other people having trouble adjusting to what was going on? It all seemed pretty easy.
It was pretty easy. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I had, well, like I say, I hadn't been away from home much, and it was kind of new to me. But I got along fine. I get along with people pretty easy.
People in your barracks, everybody got along pretty well.
Yeah, we got along fine. Yeah.
You didn't have like I said, any particular officers that were mean or
No, I don't remember anything like that. No.
Probably because you have a positive attitude about everything.
Well, that makes things easier.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a good attitude. My wife was on dialysis for a number of years, 10 years, and I took care of her, and she always had a positive attitude and make the best of what you got.
Yeah.
And do your best. Yeah.
Wow.
I was chairman of the camp board out here at Lake Springfield Christian Assembly for a number of years. And I had a lot of kids go through camp out there. And I'm going out there Wednesday for senior day.
Hmm. Well, I've enjoyed talking to you, Harold,
Well,
and
this has been very easy.
yeah, I appreciate, you taking the time to come and talk to us today, and appreciate your service for us
Well,
all.
I
So
appreciate that the kids have always wanted me to write down a lot of this stuff, but
it is a good, memorial.
but I'm glad it's recorded now.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.